Welcome to the debate. Right now, as you listen to this, an algorithm you have probably never heard of is autonomously negotiating the price of the food you're going to buy next week.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. It really is. I mean, it has no manager, it requires literally no human oversight, it simply executes mathematical logic to generate wealth. And, if you were to walk onto the trading floor of a major stock exchange 30 or 40 years ago, the mechanism of wealth creation was visceral.
Oh, absolutely. Chaotic shouting, paper tickets flying everywhere.
Exactly, a total tangle of landline phones and people yelling. Fast forward to today, and if you walk into the massive server farms in Silicon Valley or Shenzhen, the environment is entirely different. It is perfectly silent, save for the hum of the cooling fans.
Yet, within that silence, artificial intelligence has evolved. It's gone from a passive tool into an independent, wealth-generating economic actor.
And that silent hum of the server farm, that is exactly what makes this shift so profound. We are no longer talking about software that just sits there and waits for a human command.
No, definitely not.
We are talking about algorithms that learn, adapt, and execute profitable actions entirely on their own. They operate at a scale and, a speed that fundamentally outpaces human cognition.
Exactly. And the central question we're exploring today is what this autonomy actually builds for our global infrastructure. I will be arguing that AI's autonomous wealth generation is an engine of unprecedented global abundance.
Okay.
It is a democratizing force that optimizes markets and distributes resources with a precision that humans, frankly, could never achieve on our own.
And I will be taking the opposing view. I will argue that this mathematical autonomy is a highly dangerous illusion. It's a system that inevitably concentrates wealth into the hands of infrastructure monopolies and introduces unchecked, cascading fragility into our global financial and logistical networks.
All right, let's lay out our core positions here. The way I view AI's economic autonomy is really through the lens of human biology.
Biology? How so?
Think about your autonomic nervous system. You don't have to consciously instruct your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, or your stomach to digest, right?
Sure.
That baseline optimization happens autonomously, and that frees your conscious mind to think, to create, to build. Today, AI is basically becoming the autonomic nervous system of global commerce.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
But it is. It's handling the baseline optimizations of civilization, our supply chains, our energy grids, our resource allocation. And because it does that, humanity can focus on higher-level creation.
Look, I hear the analogy, but a supply chain is not a biological organ.
It is an interconnected system of resource delivery, though, and the mechanism of optimization is strikingly similar. Just look at the sheer scale of efficiency being unlocked at the ground level right now.
Okay, give me an example.
Take agriculture. John Deere's See & Spray AI isn't just a pre-programmed machine. It uses active computer vision on moving tractors to map the ground pixel by pixel in milliseconds.
Right, the weed detection stuff.
Exactly. It autonomously identifies individual weeds and triggers a microburst of herbicide exactly on that specific target. It slashes chemical costs by something like 77%. That translates to millions in extra revenue per farm.
I don't dispute the localized efficiency of that technology. It's impressive.
But it scales up to the global level, too. Look at logistics. Alibaba's Kaineo network is optimally routing packages for independent businesses all across Southeast Asia.
Right.
The AI autonomously adjusts for weather patterns, traffic densities, sudden demand spikes, all without human dispatchers. This isn't just about saving a fraction of a cent on shipping.
What is it about, then?
It's about turning operational scarcity into decentralized abundance. We are entering an era where the optimization of physical resources is no longer bottlenecked by human cognitive limits.
I come at it from a very different way. I acknowledge the incredible efficiency of a computer vision system identifying a weed that is a localized, contained optimization. But when we elevate these autonomous systems to govern global financial markets and macro supply chains, we are absolutely not building a biological nervous system.
Why not?
Because biological nervous systems evolved over millions of years to prioritize survival and resilience. We are handing over the fundamental stability of our world to black boxes whose singular, mathematically defined objective is to maximize immediate profit.
But you don't think profit maximization inherently drives system efficiency?
Not when it operates entirely outside of human context. Consider algorithmic trading. It now dominates over 80% of United States stock market volume.
Right, high-frequency trading.
Yeah. Firms like D. Shaw, Citadel, and 2 Sigma deploy reinforcement learning models. And let's be clear about how reinforcement learning actually works. It's a system that learns by trial and error at 1,000,000 times our speed.
True.
It updates its internal mathematical weights just to maximize a specific numerical reward. It doesn't know what a stock actually represents in the physical world. It just knows that buying at X and selling at Y increases its score.
And in doing so, I would argue it provides deep liquidity to the markets.
But it generates billions of dollars not by creating tangible value, but by capturing micro-fluctuations in order book data. These high-frequency trading AIs execute millions of trades per second.
Which humans literally cannot do.
Exactly. They're anticipating and reacting to variables invisible to us. But that hyper-optimization creates profound systemic risks. When you have a global economy driven by interconnected, profit-maximizing neural networks all trying to outtrade one another.
You think they'll crash the system?
I know they can. A single localized mathematical error can trigger a catastrophic global failure before a human even realizes something has gone wrong. The speed of execution outpaces the speed of human intervention.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because you are equating speed with fragility. And those are two very different concepts.
I don't think they're different when we're talking about unmonitored execution.
But AI actually makes global markets and logistics fundamentally anti-fragile through its predictive capabilities. The machine doesn't just react faster to a failure, it anticipates the failure and preempts it.
Preemption is a very strong word when you're dealing with chaotic global markets.
But the mechanisms exist today. Let's look at heavy manufacturing. Siemens is utilizing AI-orchestrated factories using digital twins.
Oh, right, the virtual models.
Yes, a digital twin is a complete real-time virtual replica of a physical asset running parallel to the real world. The AI runs constant physics-based simulations on this twin.
Okay.
It can predict that a specific turbine will fail 4 days from now, just based on microscopic vibration data. It then autonomously reroutes production tasks across the factory floor to avoid downtime. That isn't fragile. That is incredibly robust.
Robust on a single factory floor, perhaps.
It extends to global networks, too. In the shipping industry, you've got Maersk's TradeLens AI using predictive analytics and graph neural networks.
Right.
And a graph neural network doesn't just look at a spreadsheet of ships. It maps reality as an interconnected web. If it detects a storm developing near a port in Shanghai, the AI mathematically traces how that exact delay will ripple out.
To affect other ports?
Exactly. To affect truck driver availability in Los Angeles 3 weeks later. It then autonomously reroutes cargo to alternate ports to prevent the bottleneck. By foreseeing a disruption and adjusting the system before the delay even occurs, it builds profound shock absorbers into the global economy.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The very shock absorbers you're describing rely on a highly dangerous operational philosophy called tight coupling.
Tight coupling is just removing wasted time and space from a system.
Exactly. It removes the slack. And human inefficiency, while costly actually, provides a vital protective buffer.
A buffer against what? Efficiency?
A buffer against catastrophic chain reactions. Let's look at Foxconn operations in Taiwan. They employ AI swarms for component assembly and procurement. These aren't just robots turning screws.
No, they handle logistics too.
Right. These are algorithms autonomously haggling in real time with supplier AIs over semiconductor prices based on global shortage data.
Which ensures they never overpay or overstock their inventory.
But when you have an AI at Foxconn negotiating at light speed with an AI at a microchip fabricator, you have removed all the slack from the system.
I still don't see why that's a negative.
Because if a human buyer takes 2 days to approve a massive purchase order, that's 2 days where a pricing error or a logistical flaw can be caught. When systems are tightly coupled and operating at peak mathematical efficiency, a single cybersecurity breach, or even an adversarial data input.
Like a fake weather report?
Yes, say, a spoofed weather report fed into that trade lens system you mentioned. That could halt the entire global supply chain in seconds.
Well, only if the algorithm is poorly trained on anomalous data.
The AI doesn't possess human common sense to identify an anomaly that falls outside its training distribution. If its reinforcement parameters tell it to halt all purchasing because of a corrupted demand signal, the factory stops.
Okay.
And because every other factory's AI is tightly coupled to that one, they stop too. The sheer interconnectivity means the failure of a single algorithm ripples outward instantaneously.
Even if we assume that level of tight coupling introduces new risk vectors, which, is a fair point, we cannot ignore the sheer volume of output it generates when operating correctly. If we agree these systems are maximizing global output, the critical question becomes who actually captures the value of that efficiency?
Precisely. And the answer to that question exposes the core flaw in your narrative of global abundance. AI does not democratize wealth. By its very architectural requirements, it concentrates wealth violently into the hands of those who own the infrastructure.
How so? The software itself is increasingly open source. Anyone can download these models.
The software is open, sure, but the execution environment is a walled garden. To run the kinds of autonomous, predictive models we are talking about, you need massive, centralized compute power.
You need servers, yes.
You need server farms that consume the energy of small nations. You need AWS, you need Alibaba Cloud. The entities that truly profit are the massive conglomerates that can actually afford the compute toll.
Right, the infrastructure providers.
And the massive corporations that rent them. Take pharmaceutical giants like Pfizer. They are using AI to run massive protein folding simulations to test drug efficacy virtually. They're slashing their real-world R&D costs by 25%.
Which allows life-saving medications to reach the market faster and cheaper. I see that as an absolute win.
But it acts as an impenetrable economic moat. A smaller, independent biotech startup simply cannot afford the millions of dollars in cloud compute required to train a competing model.
Well, compute costs are dropping.
But the scale required keeps growing. The AI is generating massive wealth, yes, but it is sucking it upward. It creates an oligopoly of infrastructure owners. We are replacing a market of thousands of competitive human enterprises with a market dictated by 5 or 6 tech monopolies that rent out the algorithmic intelligence required to survive. It disenfranchises the smaller players entirely.
That's an interesting point. Though I would frame it differently. You are looking at the compute costs for enterprise-level model training, but I look at the deployment of these models, and I see AI expanding economic inclusion in ways traditional banking and corporate structures never could.
Expanding inclusion?
Yes. You say it disenfranchises smaller players, but look at microfinance.
Microfinance is highly localized, though?
But its impact is massive. Look at Ant Group, which has partnered with mobile money platforms like M-Pesa in Africa. Historically, traditional banks completely ignored underserved rural populations.
Because of the underwriting costs.
Exactly. It was just too expensive to send human underwriters out to assess them. And these individuals lacked traditional credit scores. They were locked out of the global economy. Now, Ant Group has deployed AI that assesses creditworthiness purely through alternative mathematical patterns.
Like what kind of patterns?
Things like mobile phone top-up regularity, utility payments, and digital transaction histories.
And it executes these loans autonomously?
Completely autonomously. It approves microloans in seconds. There is no human underwriter sitting in a glass tower deciding who gets capital.
Wow.
But the AI is autonomously generating wealth for the financial institution through interest, while simultaneously providing vital, immediate capital to independent entrepreneurs who were previously invisible to the market.
But the core profit still flows back to the centralized algorithm owner, doesn't it?
It's a symbiotic creation of wealth, and it goes beyond just loans. In Kenya, Apollo Agriculture uses AI to process satellite data analyzing vegetation health and soil moisture to automatically approve financing for seed and fertilizer.
Okay.
That application of AI has increased farm yields by 30%. Indian farmers are using Microsoft's FarmBeats AI, which analyzes drone imagery to predict commodity prices in Chicago and Mumbai.
Really?
Yes. This allows an independent rural farmer to know exactly when to harvest and sell their crops at peak market prices. That is not wealth concentration. That is democratizing access to top-tier predictive intelligence. It allows an independent farmer to leverage the exact same mathematical foresight as a Wall Street trader.
But whether it's an Indian farmer deciding when to harvest or a Wall Street hedge fund deciding when to liquidate a portfolio, we are relying on systems whose decision-making processes we fundamentally cannot read. This brings us to what I believe is the most dangerous aspect of autonomous wealth generation: the absolute lack of explainability and liability.
Ah, you're talking about the black box problem.
Exactly. When an AI generates a profit, no one questions the math. But when an autonomous system causes catastrophic financial harm, who is legally or financially responsible?
Well, we're figuring that out.
But regulators are struggling to keep up, which is why we are seeing frameworks like the EU's GDPR demanding a right to explanation for algorithmic decisions, and the AI Act attempting to classify high-risk systems.
Right.
But the technology is vastly outpacing the law.
Regulation always lags behind innovation. That's not a reason to halt the technology entirely.
That's a compelling argument. But have you considered what happens when the technology operates with zero liability? We are now seeing the rise of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations.
Right, the crypto structures.
Yes, a DAO is essentially a software protocol running on a blockchain that acts like a company. Take MakerDAO, for example. It utilizes algorithms that read external market data through price oracles, and based on that math, it automatically adjusts interest rates or liquidates multi-million-dollar asset positions.
Well, it does. So to maintain the stability of the stablecoin peg, it's necessary maintenance.
But there is no human governance board holding a vote before it acts. If an autonomous trading bot operating within one of these DAOs misreads a data input and triggers a multi-billion-dollar market crash, who goes to jail?
That's a tough legal question, sure.
Do you subpoena the developer who wrote the core logic 5 years ago? Do you sue the cloud provider hosting the node? If a generative AI autonomously creates and sells a digital product that violates corporate intellectual property, where does the liability fall?
Accountability entirely vanishes inside these black boxes because our legal systems require a human mind to hold responsible. I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Accountability isn't vanishing. Human oversight is simply evolving. We are shifting our role in the economy from manual operators to high-level overseers.
Overseers? How do you oversee a machine that makes 1 million decisions a second?
By overseeing the parameters of its environment. You mentioned DAOs and blockchain as a risk, but blockchain actually provides the exact transparency and auditability you're asking for.
Transparency of the transaction, maybe, not the logic.
But a blockchain is an immutable public ledger. Every single action an AI takes on-chain is permanently recorded. When an AI operates via smart contracts, which are just self-executing lines of code, the rules of engagement are explicitly codified and visible to everyone before the machine is ever turned on.
Okay.
The AI simply cannot operate outside the bounding box set by the human overseers.
Setting a bounding box doesn't mean you understand how the AI arrives at its conclusions inside that box, though.
But we can align the outcomes with human intention. We see this exact synergy between human parameter setting and autonomous AI execution in entirely new creative asset classes.
Like what?
Look at the music industry. Recently, an AI-generated music track from the system AI Via topped streaming charts in Europe.
I think I read about that.
Yeah, the AI autonomously composed the track, mixed it, and earned royalties through algorithmic playlisting. We have generative models like Midjourney creating digital art that is sold as NFTs on decentralized marketplaces, with secondary royalties flowing back automatically via smart contracts every time the asset changes hands.
Art and music are subjective, though. The stakes are incredibly low compared to macroeconomics.
The stakes are different, sure, but the mechanism of oversight is the same. The AI does the rapid execution, the pattern matching, and the iterative optimization, but the human sets the creative parameters and the ethical boundaries.
I'm just not sure that boundaries hold at scale.
And furthermore, the black box is becoming less opaque. We are developing highly sophisticated tools for AI interpretability, allowing us to mathematically audit the hidden layers of these neural networks and align the reward functions with human values. We aren't surrendering control to the machine. We are elevating our level of control.
I mean, aligning a reward function with human values is incredibly difficult when the system's primary, overarching directive is just to generate autonomous revenue.
Revenue generation doesn't have to be misaligned with human well-being, though.
It is when the AI cannot contextualize the physical world. The examples you give, a music track on a streaming platform, an NFT sale, these are closed, low-stakes digital environments.
Fair.
But when we scale that exact same autonomous logic to an AI trading energy futures on the Australian energy market operator, or an algorithm optimizing global oil tanker routes based on weather data and regional instability, the stakes become existential.
Those algorithms are designed to secure the supply chain, not disrupt it.
But the AI doesn't understand the physical consequences of its trades. It only understands the mathematical optimization of the variable.
Right.
If a strategy to maximize energy arbitrage involves artificially starving a specific regional grid of power during a peak demand moment just to force the price higher on the other side of the country, the algorithm will execute that strategy. It will do so unless explicitly forbidden by a human who somehow foresaw that exact edge case during the programming phase.
Which is why we use simulated environments to test these models extensively before deployment.
And we simply cannot simulate every edge case of human reality. We are building an autonomous finale engine that moves faster than our regulatory frameworks, faster than our economic models, and fundamentally faster than our ability to comprehend its operational logic.
But that very complexity is exactly why we need these autonomous systems. The modern global economy has become far too complex for human cognition to optimize manually. We have over 8 billion people, intertwined global supply chains, highly volatile energy grids, and rapidly shifting climate variables.
Complexity doesn't justify surrendering the steering wheel.
It requires a better steering mechanism. To summarize my position today, AI autonomously generating wealth is an unstoppable, deeply necessary force. It is unlocking trillions of dollars in global GDP by turning scarcity into abundance.
It possesses the mathematical precision to eliminate the massive inefficiencies that keep prices high and resources locked away. Whether it is lowering the cost of agriculture through targeted pixel-by-pixel computer vision or expanding capital inclusion to independent farmers across the globe through alternative data, AI is the engine of a new economic era. The wealth it generates is entirely real, and provided we continue to learn how to act as capable overseers of this digital ecosystem, it will elevate the global standard of living in ways we can scarcely imagine.
And to summarize my stance, the wealth generation is indeed real, and the localized efficiency gains of these algorithms are undeniable. However, entrusting the stability of our global financial systems, our physical logistics, and our critical infrastructure to profit-maximizing autonomous black boxes is a profound, uncalculated risk.
Right.
This mathematical autonomy does not naturally self-correct. It optimizes blindly, pushing systems to the absolute brink of their physical limits. Without rigorous explainability and strict structural slack, we risk a severe centralization of wealth into the hands of the tech monopolies that controlled the compute infrastructure. Furthermore, we introduce a cascading fragility into our markets, where a single algorithmic miscalculation can trigger a severe economic crisis before a human can pull the plug. Efficiency simply cannot come at the cost of resiliency and accountability.
Well, it seems we do have a solid point of convergence here. We both recognize that by 2030, the nature of commerce will be entirely transformed. We agree that AI is no longer just a passive tool waiting for human input. It has fully arrived as a rapidly evolving independent economic actor.
Absolutely. The transition from manual human administration to algorithmic autonomy is happening right now, across every sector, from high finance to rural farming. Where we fundamentally disagree is on the nature of that autonomy.
Yes.
Whether its relentless mathematical pursuit of optimization ultimately balances and benefits humanity, or whether it destabilizes the very economies it was built to manage.
It is a profound structural shift, and it's something that is unfolding around us every single day, mostly out of sight. We highly encourage you to look closely at your own industries, your own businesses, and observe how algorithmic systems are silently generating wealth, optimizing processes, and completely changing the definition of value.
The next time you walk past a silent server room or look at a perfectly routed package arriving at your door hours after you ordered it, consider the invisible, autonomous economy operating just beneath the surface. Have we built a digital nervous system capable of managing the complex future of human commerce? Or have we engineered a hyper-brittle glass engine running at maximum speed, just waiting for a single microscopic fracture?
We will leave that final conclusion entirely up to you. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.